Hello dear students, welcome back to my English class. Today in this video, I am going to discuss an elementary school classroom in a slum by Stephen Spender from your textbook Flamingo. Stephen Spender was an eminent English poet and essayist. In this poem, he expresses his political views and reminds the authority and all the people in power of their moral duty and responsibility towards the poor and the underprivileged. The poem was written to highlight the themes of social injustice and class inequalities. More specifically, the poem deals with the poverty and hardship of the children of an elementary school classroom in a slum area. Well, let's now look at the text of the poem and learn. Here are the first two stanzas of the poem. Let me read out the first stanza. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with her wet down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk. At the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. The first stanza we see gives us a description of the children sitting in the classroom located in a slum. The poet says that the faces of the children were far away from gusty waves. Gusty waves, if I can underline the words, means sudden rush of strong wind. The poet says that the children's faces, the faces of the children are far away from the gusty waves, which means they were devoid of the energy, freshness and color of the gusty waves, which should have been there at their age. So they are far away from gusty waves. These children's faces are also compared with rootless weeds. Rootless weeds is an example of a simile here, where the poet compares the faces of the children with the rootless weeds. Rootless weeds means unwanted or useless grass and plants. Since there was no freshness, there was no energy, there was no vigor on their faces appeared like rootless weeds. The hair torn round their pallor. The hair of the children was also very untidy, as if they didn't comb their hair for a long time, and their hair scattered all over their pale faces. Pallor means pale face. Then the poet talks about a girl, a tall girl with her wet down head. Wet down head is very significant, which means the depression on the part of the girl. The girl was very depressed and she was sitting with her head down. It was because of the heavy burden of poverty in her family. She was burdened with the load of poverty and she was bending her head down. The tall girl with her head wet down head. The paper-seeming boy. The paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes. Then there was also another boy who was very lean and thin. The use of the word paper-seeming is very significant. Here we should note the use of some very powerful words by the poet to bring a very picture before our eyes. Paper-seeming is an example of metaphor because the boy was as lean and thin as a thin white piece of paper, and his eyes are also compared with the eyes of a rat, which are bulging and hungry looking. So here is another example of a simile. The poem is full of similes and metaphors and sometimes irony also. The stunted, unlucky year of twisted bones. This particular boy is very unlucky and very unfortunate because he didn't get any property from his father, and his growth was also not proper in accordance with his age. Stunted means he suffered from malnutrition and his growth was not proper. The stunted, unlucky year of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease. He has been suffering from his father's disease of twisted bones. His lesson from his desk. In this way, he was sitting in that classroom. At the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. The use of the word dim brings to our mind, brings to our eyes the situation of the classroom. The classroom was not having sufficient light. It was a dim class. And at the back of that dim class, there was a sweet and young child who was not noticed. And what was he doing? His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree other than this. He was not interested in the class. He was not paying any attention to the class. Rather, he was dreaming of the squirrel's game. The squirrel might be playing in the hollow of the tree. And that was what he was thinking about. Here is an example of metaphor, squirrel's game, because the child, this boy also wanted to play freely as the squirrel, but he cannot, as he has to sit in his gloomy and dull class. So the metaphor serves the contrast between the happy and cheerful life outside in the case of the squirrel and the gloom and despair of the classroom inside. In this way, the first stanza gives us a description about the condition of the children of that elementary school classroom in a slum. Now moving on to the next stanza, the second stanza of the poem. On sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome riding all cities, veiled, flowery, tireless valley, open-handed map awarding the world its world, and yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their future is painted with a fog. The stanza gives us a description of the classroom itself. The classroom walls have been described as sour cream walls. Sour cream walls means dirty and yellowish in color. The classroom walls were very dirty and very unpleasant to look at. Then the classroom walls were also decorated with donations and the portrait of Shakespeare's, the world famous dramatist. Then apart from these, there were also a cloudless sky at dawn, the domes of buildings, the beautiful scenes of tireless valley with flowers and bells. These things were also painted on the walls. But these things were quite irrelevant in the lives of the children. These were not applicable to those children because their life is quite different from these things. These things symbolize development, progress, civility, and prosperity of a nation, which, however, were not to be found in the lives of those children. Open-handed map awarding the world its world. Then there was also a world map in that classroom. And the map was designed by the people in accordance with their own choice. But the poet says that for these children, these windows and not this map their world. These windows refer to the environment, the surroundings, the dirty surroundings in which those slum children were living. And these windows and not that map where their dirty place didn't find an expression. That map is not their world. These windows, the environment where they are living, is their world, where all their future is painted with a fog. Future painted with a fog because everything is uncertain in their life. There is no hope, there is no ray of hope in their lives. Their future is very bleak and full of uncertainty and hopelessness. In this way, the poet describes the classroom in the second stanza and also shows a contrast between the lives of the poor children of that slum classroom in that elementary school classroom of a slum area, and a picture, a very promising picture which has been found inside the classroom. With this explanation of the first two stanzas of the poem, I would like to end my video here. I request the students to watch my other video for the explanation of the remaining two stanzas, and I will give you a link. By clicking the link, you can watch that video for the explanation of the remaining two stanzas. Thank you for watching this video.